Some places on this earth refuse to be mapped by human reason, and the Western Pacific holds one of the most disturbing of them all. They call it the Devil's Sea, a name that rises from ancient Japanese whispers and clings to the ocean like a damp fog that never lifts. Sailors have long known this stretch of water south of Tokyo as the Dragon's Triangle, a zone where compasses spin without direction and ships vanish into glass-smooth calm. To the modern world, it is the Bermuda Triangle's darker Pacific cousin, a maritime riddle that has swallowed countless vessels and aircraft without a single distress call. Imagine standing on the deck of a research vessel, the air heavy with salt and an unnerving stillness, as the horizon blurs into a gray void where sky and sea conspire to hide their secrets. The official nautical charts mark it with quiet caution, but the folklore charts mark it with dread. A region where the ocean is said to open like a mouth and consume the unwary whole. In the 1950s, the Japanese government took an unprecedented step. They declared the area a shipping danger zone, a rare admission that something beyond normal peril lurked beneath the waves. That declaration followed the disappearance of the Kaiyo Maru No. 5, a modern research vessel sent to study the very anomalies that would later claim it without a trace. What happened to that ship and her crew of 31 souls remains a cold case file in the archives of the Japanese Coast Guard, the paper now yellowed and the silence louder than any explosion. Before radar and satellite tracking, the Devil's Sea was already a black spot on the mental maps of Japanese fishermen who spoke of the Ma no Umi, the Sea of the Devil, with lowered voices. They told of sudden whirlpools that spun from flat water, of glowing mists that rose at midnight, and of boats that returned carrying only ghosts. The legends stretch back centuries, weaving into the myth of a dragon sleeping beneath the seabed, whose thrashing tail could shatter a hull in minutes. But legends, as you know, are often dismissed until steel ships and military planes begin disappearing with the same eerie finality as wooden fishing boats. During the Cold War, the Devil's Sea entered the intelligence chatter of multiple nations, a region where submarines reportedly experienced equipment malfunctions that no engineer could explain. An American naval report once noted a phenomenon of unusual magnetic disturbances that scrambled navigation systems for miles in every direction, turning modern instruments into useless pieces of glass and metal. The geographic boundaries are roughly drawn from the Bonin Islands to the coast of Japan, a triangle of deep water that overlies one of the most volatile geological regions on the planet. Beneath the surface, the Pacific tectonic plate grinds against the Philippine Sea Plate, creating a labyrinth of underwater volcanoes and hydrothermal vents that breathe superheated brine into the abyss. Seismic scans reveal a seafloor scarred by countless eruptions, a terrain so unstable that entire seamounts have collapsed into the darkness without warning. Researchers combing through centuries of maritime records have tallied hundreds of unexplained losses in this area, from pearl divers' skiffs to cargo freighters longer than a city block. Ancient Japanese court chronicles from the 13th century describe a great disturbance in the eastern seas that swallowed an entire fishing fleet during a season of otherwise calm weather. In the winter of 1921, the sailing ship Kaiyo Maru sent a desperate final message: "Danger like none we have ever seen. The sea is changing. Please come quickly." And then nothing. That transmission, received by a nearby vessel, contained no Mayday coordinates, no explosion, just a voice terrified by something the radio operator could not name. 20 years later, during the Pacific War, Japanese military flight logs recorded patrol aircraft that simply vanished while reporting clear skies and normal engine readings. Each disappearance adds a brushstroke to a portrait the world does not want to paint, because the canvas refuses to yield a recognizable shape. After the Kaiyo Maru disaster, Japanese scientists launched a desperate attempt to anchor the mystery in physical evidence rather than sailor superstition. They deployed deep-sea cameras and sonar mapping arrays, hoping to find the wreckage and prove that a sudden volcanic event or rogue wave had been the culprit. The expedition returned with something perhaps more unsettling: vast fields of methane hydrate deposits lining the seafloor, a substance that can turn seawater into a gas-charged froth capable of sinking a vessel in minutes. Imagine a ship sailing across a pocket of such gas. The water beneath its keel would suddenly lose all buoyancy, and the vessel would drop as if the sea had turned to air. No time for a radio call, no time for a lifeboat, just a silent plunge into the black, leaving nothing but a momentary swirl that the current quickly erases. This theory of methane eruptions is compelling, supported by sonar images of huge craters on the seabed that look like exit wounds from deep within the Earth's crust. Yet, it does not fully account for the aircraft that have gone missing far above the waves, their pilots unable to report anything before their radar signatures dissolved. Where methane fails to explain, other voices in the scientific community gesture toward powerful geomagnetic forces that twist and warp the navigation grid itself. The Devil's Sea lies within a zone known for anomalous magnetic fields, areas where a compass dances in lazy circles or points stubbornly in a direction that makes no sense. Geologists mapping the region's magnetic signature found deviations strong enough to induce a reversal error in older instrumentation, potentially leading experienced captains miles off course into dead water. But even these rational explanations begin to fray at the edges when you listen to the testimonies of those who returned from the edge. A Japanese fishing captain who survived a 1966 incident recounted seeing a thick green fog descend from a cloudless sky, a fog that tasted of copper and made the ship's metal fittings glow with a faint luminescence. He described the sea beneath the fog as boiling in a perfect circle around his vessel, the waves rising and falling in a rhythm that felt like a heartbeat. His testimony, recorded by a folklore society, is dismissed by oceanographers but cherished by those who believe the Devil's Sea is not a geological fault but a gate. You must pause here and consider the chasm that divides the empirical mind from the instinctual, because this mystery erodes that boundary like a tide swallowing footprints. So we descend deeper into the labyrinth of competing explanations, where each theory illuminates a corridor only to reveal a wall of deeper shadow. The underwater volcano hypothesis holds that sudden eruptions of ash and pumice could create floating debris fields that trap propellers and tear open hulls, mimicking a swift and silent kill. Dr. Yutaka Ikari, a marine geologist from the University of Tokyo, spent 10 years mapping the region's magma chambers and concluded that the seafloor here is a live wire capable of unleashing eruptions with little seismic warning. His data shows that in a given century, a dozen or more significant seamount explosions could occur, each one a potential ship killer operating too quickly for human reaction. But his hypothesis, elegant as it is, cannot explain the specific locations of disappearances, which cluster in patterns that do not perfectly align with known volcanic vents. Then there are the rogue waves, those monstrous walls of water that were mythologized for centuries before satellite altimetry proved they rise with terrifying frequency in certain ocean corridors. In the Devil's Sea, the interaction of the Kuroshio Current and complex underwater topography could generate constructive interference, piling wave upon wave until a 60-foot vertical cliff of water emerges from a calm swell. A rogue wave of that magnitude could snap a large vessel's spine in one blow, swallowing it so completely that the ocean surface settles back as if nothing had ever disturbed its skin. And so the labyrinth widens to encompass something far more speculative, the whispers of technology not yet proven or physics not yet written. A retired U.S. Air Force colonel once published a memoir claiming that classified geomagnetic tests in the region inadvertently triggered a subspace instability that swallowed anything with a large metal mass. Though his account is dismissed as fiction by the Pentagon, it aligns disturbingly with older myths of a dragon's maw, a vortex that opens according to cycles humanity does not yet understand. Paranormal theorists have long pointed to the Devil's Sea as one of the 12 vile vortices that form a geometric grid around the planet, places where the laws of physics supposedly thin out. These vortices, mapped by Ivan Sanderson and others, include such cheerful destinations as the Bermuda Triangle and the Algerian megaliths, but the Devil's Sea remains among the least studied. A more sober voice belongs to the engineers who suspect that subsurface geological formations create a lensing effect, focusing infrasound waves that can resonate with the human nervous system and cause panic. An infrasound frequency around 7 Hz can induce disorientation, blurred vision, and a primal sense of dread, enough perhaps to drive a crew to abandon ship or a pilot to veer fatally off course. This would explain the odd final messages that speak not of mechanical failure, but of a creeping, unfathomable terror that seems to infect those who enter this stretch of water. But infrasound cannot erase a vessel from sight, nor can it explain why so much debris is never found, as if the ocean floor expands and swallows every rivet and plank. The abyss below the Devil's Sea is among the deepest in the Pacific, with trenches plunging over 7 miles, creating a dark cathedral where anything lost would be entombed by pressure beyond imagination. Recovery missions have descended into these depths and found only basalt and the bioluminescent flickers of creatures that have never seen sunlight, offering no answers, only more silence. And so the theories circle one another in a holding pattern of human frustration, because the one thing they all share is an inability to be definitively proven. You begin to sense a pattern in the human response. We build our fragile ships and aircraft. We erect our lighthouses of data and calculation, and the sea simply watches with an archaic patience. The local fishermen, who have lived with this mystery for generations, have stopped seeking a scientific explanation. They have instead woven the danger into their cosmology. They will tell you, as they knot their nets before a voyage, that the sea has a spirit called Otohime, who was once a dragon princess and who now collects the souls of the drowned to serve in her undersea palace. This is not superstition to them. It is a language describing a relationship with an unpredictable world, a way of accepting that some regions of existence are not for human traversal. The psychological toll on those who have lost shipmates in the Devil's Sea is a wound that never fully scars, because the absence of bodies and wreckage prevents the ritual closure that grief demands. A woman in a coastal village near Chiba still places a lantern on the shore every equinox, believing that one night the light will catch the edge of her grandfather's returning fishing boat and guide him home. Her ritual echoes a larger human truth. We are creatures who need to see the evidence of loss, and when the sea takes without giving back, the mind cannot rest. Marine researchers themselves are not immune to this haunting. One oceanographer admitted in a late-career interview that he dreamt of the trench's topography as a living throat that expanded and contracted in his sleep. The obsession to explain the Devil's Sea has consumed several academic careers, piling dissertations and survey charts into archives that only deepen the mystery by revealing how much we still cannot measure. Consider again the human cost, because behind every disappearance statistic lies a name, a child who never met their fisherman father, a wife who waited at the pier until hope turned to salt rust. The Japanese Maritime Safety Agency's files contain photographs of families holding small portraits, standing beside empty docks after search operations were suspended with the same cold notation, "No trace found." That watch now sits in a small maritime museum under glass, its hands frozen at a time that no one can connect to any logged distress signal, a silent relic of a last moment lost to the deep. The human obsession to find answers has launched no fewer than 12 major expeditions since 1960, each returning with more sonar maps and less confidence than the one before. A privately funded search in 1987 deployed a submersible to the trench floor, where its cameras captured an image of what appeared to be a crumpled aircraft tail section, too deep for recovery. When a second dive was attempted 3 years later to identify the wreckage, the team found only an empty stretch of mud, as if the sea floor had shifted and buried the evidence under tons of new sediment. This capacity of the abyss to erase its own history is one reason the Devil's Sea maintains its grip on the collective imagination. It actively resists the human impulse to excavate and catalog. There is a philosophical weight here that you can feel pressing against the edge of reason, the realization that the planet is not a curated museum, but a living system that consumes what it creates. We tell ourselves that time reveals all things, but as you look upon these charts where the search grids overlap in a mesh of futility, you understand that some secrets are designed to outlast human attention spans. Perhaps the Devil's Sea is a mirror reflecting our own terror of meaninglessness, of the fact that a ship can simply cease to be and leave no note for the universe to interpret. Our maps, our GPS satellites, our remote-operated vehicles. These are our charms against that terror, our talismans, to ward off the idea that we are still subject to forces we cannot name. Yet the persistent emptiness of this stretch of ocean suggests that the talisman is brittle, that the boundaries between the known world and the unaccountable are drawn in something more fluid than ink. Ultimately, the enduring enigma of the Devil's Sea is not about any single ship or plane. It is about the fraction of the Earth that remains opaque to our instruments. It is about the humbling truth that even in an age of global surveillance, there are pockets of the planet where a vessel can sail out of contact and into a silence that no signal can penetrate. And so we are left staring into the abyss, exactly as the ancients did, with a mixture of fear and reverence for a power that does not negotiate with our need for tidy narratives. The scientific community will continue to deploy sensors and collect data, and the folklorists will continue to record the stories of the dragon beneath the waves. Neither will fully satisfy the soul of someone who has heard the midnight radio static that teased the rescue operators with a garbled voice and then dissolved into nothing. That static is the signature of the Devil's Sea, a sound that contains both the possibility of an explosion and the possibility of a whisper from a dimension that we cannot map. You, listening now, may feel a subtle unease, a recognition that the ocean's true depth is not measured in feet or fathoms, but in the unknowns it jealously guards. Every culture bordering the Pacific has its version of this nightmare sea, a place where the world tears open and reveals a layer of existence that humanity is not meant to inhabit. The Dragon's Triangle is Japan's chapter in a global anthology of oceanic dread, and it remains one of the least solved, the least penetrated, the least pacified by explanation. If you ever find yourself on a vessel sailing those waters, you might watch the compass needle tremble at twilight and recall that the sea floor beneath you is a city of volcanoes and sealed wreckage. You might imagine the methane pockets waiting like silent geysers, the rogue waves building in the distant storm tracks, the whale song echoing off the trench walls where light never touches. In the end, the Devil's Sea abides, patient as the tectonic plates that slide beneath its bed, indifferent to our theories and our prayers. It swallows its dead without ceremony, keeps its secrets in pressure-locked vaults, and waits for the next ship to cut across its forbidden triangle with innocent confidence. And when the next disappearance flashes across the news wires, the world will murmur about the Bermuda Triangle's twin, and the scientists will recite their latest models, and the fishermen will light another lamp upon the shore. But the sea itself will not speak, because the sea is the oldest archive on Earth, and it owes no explanation to the brief creatures who sail upon its surface. Perhaps that is the deepest mystery of all. Not what the Devil's Sea takes, but the profound human need to know why, and the vast, quiet refusal of the deep to ever answer.